The first time Amara Nwosu saw Ethan Mercer, rain was turning the streets of Victoria Island into mirrors. She had just slipped out of a tiny art gallery, clutching a folder of sketches to her chest like a shield, when a gust of wind snatched one loose. The paper spun into the open road, right into the path of a black car that braked hard enough to make the world inhale. Before she could run, a tall man in a light gray shirt stepped out, bent, and caught the drawing between two fingers as if it were something precious, not just charcoal and hope. He looked up, and for a second, everything around them blurred into the sound of rain and the dull thump of Amara's heartbeat. Before we continue, please like, comment, and subscribe and tell us where you're watching from, because some love stories begin quietly and then break you loudly. I'm so sorry, Amara blurted, rushing forward. That was stupid. I didn't mean. It wasn't stupid, he said, holding the drawing up. His voice was calm, warm, with a slight accent that didn't quite belong to the city. This is yours. Amara nodded, cheeks burning. It was a portrait, unfinished, of a woman staring into a distant horizon. It wasn't anyone specific. It was what loneliness looked like when it had learned to smile. It's beautiful, he said, and handed it back like it was fragile glass. You draw like you've survived something. Amara didn't know how to answer that, because it was true. She had survived a father who disappeared into promises and never came back. A mother who loved her fiercely but had grown tired in the quiet ways. Bills that came with sharp edges. A dream that kept asking her to be brave when she had no strength left. Thank you, she managed. And you almost ran it over. I did not, he said with a small grin. I stopped. She laughed, surprised by the sound. It felt like pulling sunlight from a closed fist. He glanced toward his driver, who hovered near the car, watchful. I'm Ethan, he said. Ethan Mercer. Amara, she replied. Amara Nwosu. He repeated her name like it mattered, like he wanted to remember it. They stood there longer than necessary, rain threading between them, speaking in quick, strange bursts, about the gallery, about Lagos traffic, about how the city always felt like it was running somewhere even when you weren't. When Amara mentioned she was saving to rent a tiny studio space, Ethan's eyebrows lifted with real interest. You sell your work, he asked. Sometimes, she said. Mostly I sell what I can. Portraits, logos, murals. Anything. I'd like to buy something, he said simply. Not out of pity. Out of curiosity. I don't take charity. I didn't offer charity, he replied, still smiling. I offered a purchase. Amara hesitated, then gave him her number with the same caution she used when stepping off a curb. Men could be storms. Charm could be bait. But something in Ethan's eyes didn't feel like hunger. It felt like recognition. That night, her phone buzzed while she stood in her cramped room, listening to the neighbor's generator cough like an old man. A message lit up her screen. Ethan, did the rain stop, Amara? Or is it still arguing with the city? She stared too long before replying. Amara, still arguing. Lagos never knows when to be quiet. Ethan, neither do I, unfortunately. Can I call you tomorrow? Her fingers hovered. She should say no. She should remember the world's pattern. Good things arrived, then left with a laugh. But her heart, reckless and tired, typed. Amara, tomorrow is fine. Tomorrow turned into coffee. Coffee turned into late-night calls. Late-night calls turned into Ethan showing up at the gallery again, pretending it was coincidence when it wasn't. He asked about her mother, Mrs. Ifeoma, and actually listened when Amara spoke. He didn't perform concern. He carried it quietly. Ethan was in Lagos for work, he said, but never explained much more than that. Sometimes his phone rang and he stepped away, jaw tight. Sometimes he disappeared for 2 days and returned with a tired smile that didn't quite reach his eyes. You're mysterious, Amara teased once, as they stood outside a bookstore, sharing roasted groundnuts from a paper cone. I'm complicated, he corrected. So is every man. He laughed. Not like this. One evening, Ethan came to meet her after she finished painting a mural on the side of a cafe. Her arms were streaked with paint. Her hair was tied up messily. She expected him to look at her like she was unfinished. Instead, he looked at her like she was art. You make tired look like something I want to protect, he said. Amara blinked, unsure if she wanted to cry or laugh. That's a strange compliment. It's honest. He moved closer, and the space between them thinned until it felt like a thread about to snap. Amara, he said softly, I don't want to rush you, but I need you to know, being around you makes my life feel less noisy. Her breath caught. Ethan. He reached out, touching her cheek with the backs of his fingers, tentative as prayer. May I? She nodded before fear could speak. His kiss was gentle at first, like he was asking permission even after she gave it. And when it deepened, it didn't feel like possession. It felt like two lonely people finding warmth in the same fire. For the first time in a long time, Amara slept without bargaining with anxiety. She slept like she believed tomorrow could be kind. Then the wrong time began to show its teeth. It started with small things, Ethan stiffening when certain names appeared on his phone. A man who called late at night, voice low enough that Amara could only catch fragments. Press, deal, family, finalize. Once, Ethan left her apartment abruptly, apologizing with an urgency that tasted like panic. I'm sorry, he said, gripping his keys too tightly. I have to go. I'll explain later. Are you in trouble? Amara asked. He hesitated, just a heartbeat too long. Not the kind you're thinking, he replied. But yes, in a way. Amara watched him leave, the air colder after the door closed. The next day, she saw a headline on a screen in a restaurant while she waited for Ethan. It wasn't even something she meant to read. It found her like a slap. Mercer Group heir returns to Nigeria for expansion talks. Below it was a photo. Ethan, in a suit, smiling beside an older man, stern, powerful, labeled Richard Mercer chairman. Amara's stomach turned. He wasn't just in Lagos for work. He was an heir. A man with walls built from money and expectations. A man whose life had been planned before he learned how to choose. Her phone buzzed. Ethan, running late. Don't leave. Please. Amara stared at the message until her vision blurred. When Ethan arrived, he looked relieved, until he saw her face. What happened? He asked, sliding into the chair across from her. Amara turned her phone toward him, the headline glaring between them. His shoulders dropped. For the first time since she met him, he looked cornered. You should have told me, she said, voice shaking. You let me think you were just a man. I am a man, he said quickly. That's the problem. I'm trying to be one in a life that only wants me to be a title. Amara swallowed hard. So what else haven't you told me? Ethan's eyes darkened, filled with conflict. He leaned forward, lowering his voice. Amara, I didn't come here by accident. What does that mean? He exhaled like he was about to confess something that could change the shape of her life. My father sent me, he said, to finalize an arrangement. A merger. A marriage. Amara froze. A what? His voice cracked. An engagement. To Serena Caldwell. It's been decided for years. I came to Lagos to make it official. The cafe noise faded, replaced by the sound of Amara's heart breaking quietly, one sharp piece at a time. And you're telling me this now, she whispered. I didn't plan for you, Ethan said, anguish written across his face. I didn't plan to meet you to feel this. But I did. And now I'm trapped between what they demand and what I want. Amara stood up so suddenly her chair scraped. People glanced over. She didn't care. You should have stayed away from me, she said, tears rising hot and fast. You should have let me be poor and unknown and safe. Ethan rose too, reaching for her hand. Amara, please. She pulled away. Don't. Her voice broke. Don't touch me like you can choose me when you already promised someone else. I didn't promise, he said, desperate. They did. For me. Amara's laughter was bitter. And you let them. Ethan looked like he wanted to fall to his knees. Give me time, he pleaded. Let me fix this. But Amara had lived her whole life watching people ask for time while her heart paid the price. No, she whispered. You met my heart at the wrong time, Ethan. And now I'm the one bleeding. She walked away before he could see her crumble. Outside, the sky was clear, no rain, no warning. Just bright daylight, indifferent to heartbreak. And behind her, Ethan stood in the cafe doorway, watching the love he hadn't meant to find slip through his fingers like a drawing caught in the wind. Amara tried to erase Ethan from her days the way you erase pencil from paper. Slowly, repeatedly, even when the marks remained like ghosts. She blocked his number for exactly 1 hour, then unblocked it because her hands shook with the need to know if he'd tried again. She didn't want him to. She wanted him to. Both truths fought inside her until she felt exhausted by her own heart. Her mother noticed, of course. Your eyes are carrying something, Mrs. Ifeoma said one night, stirring soup on the stove. And don't tell me it's nothing. Nothing doesn't keep people awake. Amara forced a smile. It's just work stress. Her mother's gaze softened, but didn't retreat. Amara, love can be work too. But it should not feel like punishment. Amara turned away quickly, blinking back tears. She couldn't tell her mother the truth. Not yet. Not when the truth sounded like a foolish girl falling for a man who belonged to a world that would never welcome her. 2 days passed without Ethan. No calls. No texts. It hurt worse than his confession because silence felt like confirmation. He chose the plan. He chose her. On the 3rd day, Amara left her apartment to buy paint supplies. She walked fast, head down, focused on surviving the hours. When she rounded a corner near the gallery, she collided with someone solid. She stumbled back, startled, and looked up into Ethan's face. He looked like he hadn't slept. His jaw was rough with stubble. His eyes were red around the edges, like a man who'd been carrying grief without setting it down. "Amara," he said, voice low. She stepped back instinctively. "Why are you here?" "Because I can't breathe without explaining properly," he replied. "And you deserve more than a headline and a half-truth." Amara tightened her grip on the plastic bag in her hand. "You already explained. You're engaged. End of story." He flinched. "It's not the end. Not for me." "It's the end for me," she snapped, though her voice trembled. Ethan reached into his pocket and pulled out something folded, a printed invitation. Amara's eyes caught the words engagement announcement before she could stop herself. "You brought this to hurt me?" she asked, incredulous. "No," Ethan said quickly. "I brought it because this is what my father expects me to attend tomorrow. He thinks I'm obedient. He thinks I'll stand beside Serena and smile like my life is a contract." "And you will," Amara whispered. "Because you always do." Ethan's expression shattered. "I don't want to." Her throat burned. Wanting isn't enough. He stepped closer, lowering his voice like a secret. "Then tell me what is enough. Because I'm ready to burn bridges if it means I don't lose you." Amara's breath caught. She wanted to believe him so badly it felt like hunger. But promises were easy. Consequences were expensive. "You don't understand," she said, backing away. "If you choose me, they will punish you. They'll punish me too. I'll become the girl who trapped the heir. The artist who wanted a rich man. They'll drag my name through places I've never even been." Ethan's eyes softened. "Let them. I'll protect you." Amara let out a painful laugh. "You can't even protect yourself." His voice dropped. "I can try. For once." She stared at him. This man who had made her heart feel safe, now asking her to gamble it again. Rain began to fall lightly, as if the sky wanted to repeat their first meeting. "Why did you come into my life?" she whispered. Ethan's voice was raw. "Because you felt like home, Amara. And I didn't know how homeless I'd been until you." The words hit her chest like a slow ache. She hated him for saying the exact thing she needed to hear. Ethan took a careful step closer. "Come with me," he said. "Not forever. Just tonight. Let me show you the part of me that isn't Mercer Group. Let me be Ethan Mercer, the man who loves you, before I have to become whatever they want tomorrow." Amara should have said no. But heartbreak had already entered her bones. At least love, even briefly, could feel like medicine. So she nodded, and Ethan exhaled like he'd been holding his breath for days. He took her to a quiet rooftop restaurant overlooking the city lights. The music was soft. The air smelled like grilled spices and ocean wind. For a few hours, they pretended the world didn't exist. They talked, really talked. Ethan told her he grew up in a house where affection was replaced by expectations. Where his father, Richard Mercer, measured love in performance and legacy. Ethan's mother had passed when he was young, leaving him with a father who believed softness was weakness. "Serena isn't a bad person," Ethan admitted, staring at his untouched drink. "She's kind in her own way. But she's part of the plan. She wants the life. The position. And I can't blame her. She was raised to want it." Amara swallowed. "Does she know you don't love her?" Ethan's jaw tightened. "I think she knows. But she thinks love is optional. That respect and wealth are enough." "And what do you think?" Amara asked, voice barely audible. Ethan turned to her, eyes shining. "I think love is the only thing that makes the rest worth it." Amara's heart clenched. "Then why are you still in it?" Ethan looked away, ashamed. "Because leaving means war. With my father. With the board. With everyone who benefits from me being obedient." "Then fight," Amara whispered. "Or let me go." Ethan reached for her hand, and this time she didn't pull away. His palm was warm, trembling slightly. "I'm going to tell my father tomorrow that I'm not doing it," he said. "I'll tell him I'm not marrying Serena." Amara's eyes widened. "Ethan, I have to," he said, voice fierce with desperation. "Because if I don't, I'll spend my whole life wondering what it would have felt like to choose you." Tears slipped down Amara's cheeks. "And if he destroys you?" Ethan's thumb brushed her knuckles. Then at least the ruins will be mine. The night ended in Ethan's car, parked under a quiet streetlight, their foreheads pressed together as if closeness could prevent loss. I'm scared, Amara admitted. So am I, Ethan whispered. But I'd rather be scared with you than empty without you. When he kissed her, it wasn't gentle this time. It was hungry, aching, like a goodbye he refused to accept. Amara went home with her heart swollen with hope, dangerous, bright hope. The next day felt like waiting for thunder. Ethan didn't call. Hours crawled. By evening, Amara couldn't stand it. She turned on the TV at her neighbor's place because the signal was better, and there it was, like a knife wrapped in velvet. A news clip from a luxury venue. Cameras flashing. Rich laughter, polished smiles. And Ethan, standing beside a tall, elegant woman in white, Serena Caldwell, her hand on his arm. A reporter's voice cut through Amara's chest. The long-anticipated engagement announcement between Mercer Group's heir Ethan Mercer and socialite Serena Caldwell. Amara couldn't breathe. Ethan's expression in the clip looked stiff, controlled, like a man trapped inside his own skin. But he was there. He hadn't run. He hadn't fought. He hadn't chosen her. Amara felt something inside her go silent. Not screaming. Not dramatic. Just silent. The kind of silence that comes when your heart decides it can't survive another betrayal. She stood up slowly, legs shaky, and walked home under a sky that looked too calm for what it had just done to her life. When she reached her room, she found her phone buzzing nonstop. Unknown number. Unknown number. Unknown number. Finally, a message came through from Ethan's number, because she had never blocked him again after the first hour. Ethan, Amara, please. It's not what it looks like. Please answer. Please. She stared at the word please until it blurred. Then she turned her phone off. Because sometimes the only way to stop your heart from dying is to stop giving it reasons to bleed. 2 weeks passed, and Amara became a different kind of woman, quieter, sharper, more careful. She painted more than ever, but her colors turned darker, her portraits filled with eyes that looked like they were holding back storms. She stopped visiting the gallery and began working at home, as if the world outside might contain Ethan's shadow. Ethan tried everything. He sent flowers. She returned them. He sent letters. She didn't open them. He showed up once outside her building, standing under the sun like a man waiting for mercy, but she stayed behind the curtain until he left. Her mother watched her change the way mothers do, without asking too much but feeling everything. One night, Mrs. Ifeoma sat beside Amara on the bed and gently touched her daughter's hand. You don't have to tell me his name, she said softly, but you have to tell me if you're drowning. Amara's eyes filled. I'm not drowning, she whispered. Her mother's voice broke. Then why do you look like someone who forgot how to breathe? That did it. Amara cracked, crying silently into her mother's shoulder like a child who had been trying to be strong for too long. I loved him, she confessed, voice shaking. And he made me believe it was real. And then he stood beside another woman and smiled. Her mother's hand stroked her hair. Sometimes love is real, she said. And still life is cruel. Amara pulled back, wiping her face. Why would God let two hearts meet at the wrong time? Her mother's eyes were sad but steady. Maybe to teach them something. Or maybe because the world doesn't wait for us to be ready. The next morning, Amara received an envelope under her door. No stamp. No delivery label. Just her name, written in Ethan's handwriting. Her hands trembled as she opened it, because curiosity is the cousin of pain. Inside was a single folded paper and a key card. The paper read, Amara, I'm not asking you to forgive me yet. I'm asking you to hear me once, in a place where we won't be interrupted. Room 1708. Eco Hotel. Today. 6 p.m. If you don't come, I'll understand. But please, don't let the story end with a misunderstanding. Amara stared at it for a long time, anger and longing battling until she felt sick. She told herself she wouldn't go. She told herself she didn't owe him anything. But at 5:50 p.m., she found herself standing in front of room 1708, heart pounding like it was about to run away. She knocked once. The door opened almost immediately, like Ethan had been standing right behind it. He looked thinner, tired. His eyes were haunted. Amara, he whispered. She stepped inside, keeping distance like it was armor. You have 5 minutes. Ethan nodded, swallowing hard. That engagement event, he began. It was a trap. Amara's lips curled. Convenient. I know how it looks, he said quickly. But listen, my father threatened you. Amara's heart lurched. What? Ethan's voice shook with fury. He found out about you. He had people follow me. He told me if I didn't show up and play the obedient son, he would ruin you. He said he'd have your little art business inspected, your mother's hospital bills exposed, your name dragged across the internet. Amara went cold. My mother's, how would he? Because he has power, Ethan said, eyes wet. And I panicked, Amara. I thought if I did one appearance, one smile, I could buy time to protect you while I planned how to leave. Amara's throat tightened. So you chose humiliation over honesty. Ethan flinched. Yes. And I hate myself for it. Amara's voice was low, broken. What about Serena? Ethan exhaled slowly. Serena knows now. I told her everything 2 days after that event. She slapped me, he admitted with a sad, almost disbelieving smile. And then she cried, because she's been trapped too in her own way. But she won't stop it. She still wants the marriage, because it secures her life. And you? Amara asked, barely breathing. Ethan stepped forward, careful. I told my father I'm not doing it. Amara froze. You did? Ethan nodded. He cut me off. He threatened to destroy me. He said I'm nothing without Mercer Group. Amara's eyes widened as she took in the room. The plainness, the lack of luxury. It suddenly made sense. Ethan wasn't living like an heir. Where are you staying? She whispered. Here, Ethan admitted. For now. With my own money. Not the company's. Amara's heart twisted. Then why did you call me here? Ethan's eyes filled, and when he spoke, his voice sounded like a man standing on the edge of a cliff. Because I'm leaving Lagos tonight, he said. I'm flying out before my father can corner me again. I'm going to start over. Quietly. Far from him. Amara's stomach dropped. And you're telling me this now? I wanted to tell you in person, Ethan said. I wanted to look at you and say I'm sorry for every moment I made you feel like you were disposable. Amara's tears fell, hot and unstoppable. You broke me. Ethan's face crumpled. I know. Silence filled the room. Heavy. Alive. Amara wiped her cheeks, trying to breathe through the ache. Do you want me to come with you? She asked, and the question surprised her as much as it did him. Ethan's eyes widened, hope flickering dangerously. Yes, he whispered. God, yes. But I won't ask you to abandon your life for my chaos. Amara's chest hurt so much she thought it might split. Because she wanted to say yes. She wanted to run into the unknown with him. She wanted love to win. But she saw it clearly now. Ethan was choosing freedom, but freedom came with war, lawsuits, reputations, threats, distance. And Amara had spent her whole life building stability from scraps. If she ran, she'd be gambling not just her heart, but her mother's safety, her future, her fragile dreams. I can't, she whispered. Ethan's hope shattered, but he nodded like he understood, even if it killed him. I know. Amara stepped closer, her hands trembling. I love you, she admitted, voice breaking. And that's the worst part, because love should feel like peace. Ethan's tears slipped free. You were peace, he whispered. You still are. Amara reached up and touched his face, memorizing it like a painting she'd never finish. In another life, she said softly, maybe we would have met when you were free. Ethan leaned into her hand. In another life, I would have found you sooner, he whispered. And I would have chosen you faster. They held each other then, tight, trembling, like people trying to stitch a wound that wouldn't stop bleeding. Their kiss tasted like goodbye and everything they never got to be. When they finally pulled apart, Amara pressed her forehead to his. Promise me something, she whispered. Anything. Don't let this turn you bitter, she said. Don't let them steal your softness. Ethan's voice broke. Only if you promise me you'll keep painting. Even if your colors change. Amara nodded through tears. I will. Ethan picked up her hand and kissed her knuckles like a farewell prayer. Then he stepped back, forcing distance, because if he didn't, he would never leave. At the door, he paused, looking at her like he was trying to carry her image into the rest of his life. You were the best thing that ever happened to me, he said. Amara's voice was barely sound. You were the most painful. He nodded, accepting it. I know. Then he left. And this time, the door closing didn't just sound like wood meeting a frame. It sounded like the universe locking two hearts into separate timelines. Amara sank to the floor and cried until there was nothing left but emptiness and breath. When she finally stood, she walked home under a sky that was strangely bright. Weeks later, she returned to the gallery with a new collection, portraits titled Wrong Time. Every face carried the same quiet grief and the same stubborn resilience. On opening night, people praised her, bought her work, asked about her inspiration. Amara smiled politely, but inside she carried a private scar shaped like a man named Ethan. That night, back in her room, she received a final message from an unknown number. It was short. I'm safe. I'm free. I still love you. E. Amara stared at it for a long time, tears slipping down her cheeks. She didn't reply. Not because she didn't love him, but because some love stories aren't meant to continue, only to live inside you, teaching your heart what it's capable of surviving. And if this story moved you, please like, comment, and subscribe, and tell us where you're watching from.